Out of all the Marvel series arriving to Disney Plus, the one that seemed the most promising was WandaVision. It looked different, more risky, and partially based in House of M and Vision by Tom King. Maybe the best comic book series by Marvel in the last 10 years. And at the beginning, it was like that, a different and more refreshing approach to a superhero story. It was more intimate, smaller in scale, and compromised with its premise of parodying the television of the time period. That is, until we see the credits and it hits us over the face with how Marvel it is, an unintentional foreshadowing of what is to come. As once the series starts to progress, it also starts to lose its consistency and compromise, particularly in the cinematography. Let me explain. The first episode has a lot of general shots, no blocking, general lighting, minimal cinematography, very small and limited sets, and more. All elements that were common in American television for decades. But from the second episode and forwards, it utilizes a lot more medium shots, reaction shots, insert shots over the shoulders, blocking and editing in a way that it's a lot more modern. So the parodies of the time periods are diluted and limited to the laughing tracks, costume designs, hair designs, and references to shows of the time period, which makes this moment where they break the flow of the series a lot less effective than in the first episode. However, at the end, these are minor problems compared with some structural issues in the series as a whole and some major missed opportunities. This series utilizes the format of the mystery box, which lately has gained a lot of popularity in television but also a lot of backlash, especially after how the sequel trilogy of Star Wars concluded. Nevertheless, it is important to remember that the mystery box is a tool and not an inherently bad one. In the case of WandaVision, many questions are set up from the very first episode, but then the show decides to answer maybe the most important one: who is behind all of this? And yes, spoilers ahead, I know there is a song telling us that it was Agatha all along, but in reality, it all falls down in Wanda's grief and powers. This is where the structural issues come out. Let's remember that previous to this series, Wanda'S powers were not related to altering reality. Instead, she had a kind of telekinesis and some red energy beams, as well as some illusion techniques. So while the comic book fans know what she's capable of, for the people who have only seen the movies, who are the vast majority, Wanda's true powers are a mystery. So to reveal so fast that Wanda not only has reality altering powers, but is also responsible for the situations that the characters are in, was for me a huge mistake, as it leaves the series in a path where there is only one possible and very obvious villain to be revealed, instead of letting the viewers wonder the nature of this reality and the role of Wanda in all of this. Which brings me to this other problem. Due to the condition of the city and most importantly its citizens, Wanda had the potential to be trapped in this pendulum where she could be either a hero or a villain. But again, the series quickly shows that it's not compromised with this idea. For example, in episode 5, they tease us with this scene.
She's in my head. None of it is my own. It hurts. It hurts so much. Just make her stop.
But early in the same episode, there was a debate between two characters about Wanda's morality, and it's so incredibly unbalanced in her favor. I mean, who is the audience going to listen to? The cliché military guy who wants to shoot everything in front of him, or the woman that we have spent more than an entire episode to sympathize with, and it's closer to many other characters in the MCU. Additionally, in episode 6, Peter reinforces once again that Wanda is not that bad, as he mentions how she keeps things under control and the kids safe. This is done with the purpose of not leading the audience in the wrong direction due to the previous scenes with Vision. The cherry on top was the military villain randomly trying to shoot some kids. So we know for sure that the person trying to rescue the townspeople from a witch is in fact a villain and not the hero. It all culminates in the final episode with one of the worst lines of dialogue in the entire series.
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
And I burst out laughing as this came out minutes after one woman begged Wanda to let her see or hug her son again. Many of the other folks mention the psychological torture that this reality is, and soon after that, Wanda almost kills everyone, with one of them even emphasizing that she would prefer death over this fake reality.
If you won't let us go, just let us die. Please. I will.
But yeah, sure, people are being really ungrateful to you, Wanda, just for not wanting to be slaves separated from their children for your entertainment and comfort. And don't get me wrong, I don't dislike her character. For the contrary, she is charismatic, easy to sympathize with, and, maybe most importantly, Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany's performance carry so much of this show. But my god, they really didn't want to compromise with an evil Wanda. Similarly, they took a very safe path with Quicksilver. I remember how, after episode 5, there was so much excitement for the return of the actor Evan Peters and the possibility of a multiverse. I know that because at that time I hadn't even started to watch the series, and yet I noticed the hype. But in the very next episode, it was made clear that they were going to take a very safe approach. There are no references to the mutants or Magneto as their biological father, or his personality being drastically different, or their lives having no similarities between each universe, and they lampshade in a throwaway line the fact that his looks are completely different, so they can then never give it importance again. Unsurprisingly, at the end, there was no payoff or real relationship to the X-Men. Instead, he was being controlled by Agatha to pretend to be Wanda's brother, hoping that she wouldn't raise any major questions, which makes no sense. His looks were just a red herring and for fan service, which, in the context where the acquisition of Fox is still fresh in most people's minds, and an upcoming movie has literally the word multiverse in its title, it just sets things up for disappointment. But again, they took it safe, so they didn't get fully rid of the character, allowing him the possibility to come back in the future. And seeing the audience reaction, that might actually happen. We still have to talk about everyone's favorite talking toaster, Vision. His role in the story is as a counterpoint to Wanda with his quirky personality and dialogue, until he starts to become the main engine driving Wanda to confront reality. However, he's missing that smart dialogue that someone like Tom Kim was able to provide him with. It often felt like they forgot that Vision is a synthesoid whose brain is a supercomputer and not just some outward guy, limiting his most robotic moments to a few specific instances. And yet, this is not nearly as bad as what they did to him in episode 7, where they just turned him into an idiot who forgot he could fly and instead got stuck in traffic for a while. All of this so he could arrive in episode 9 right in time to save Wanda from his other self. The moment that, for obvious reasons, felt more true to Vision was the dialogue about the ship of Theseus. I really wish there were more moments like that. But now, it's time to talk about the final episode and why it was a bit of a mess. I heard that some people are angry because some characters like Mephisto didn't show up or something like that. Makes no sense to me because, unlike with the multiverse, there is no hint throughout the whole series that points out to his appearance. But apparently that was a popular fan theory. Though it doesn't matter, as none of that has anything to do with the actual problems of the final episode. Going back to Vision, when the real one appears and gets his memories back, why didn't he say anything to Wanda? I'm assuming they will answer his whereabouts in some future project, but why Wanda never asks, wonders, or shows any curiosity about what happened to the real Vision? After all, she did recognize it was him. And why the fake Vision didn't say anything about how the real one was able to recover his memories back? There are others, smaller but quite frequent, moments in the finale that either felt rushed or nonsensical. Like this moment where Agent Wu teleports from here to here so he can steal a cell phone without being seen. Or this other moment where Monica cannot escape except when she can. Additionally, she has a moment trying to protect Wanda's kids right after we already saw they don't need to be protected. And worse yet, they are going to end up disappearing anyway because they are not even real. And yet, this is better than what they did with Darcy, who arrives out of nowhere and then disappears, never to be seen again. In general, the side characters were relegated to do things that at this point weren't really needed anymore. But then there is Agatha, a character that for the most part I enjoyed her presence until the last couple episodes where she just became a generic Marvel antagonist, limiting her role in episode 8 to an exposition machine that just repeats out loud what we already saw.
So, little orphan Wanda got up close and personal with an Infinity Stone.
And in episode 9, she is just the typical evil version of the main character with no redeeming qualities, doing no justice to her truly charming revealed at the end of episode 7, which remains to me as a highlight of the entire series. So, that was WandaVision. Needless to say, this is a series where one's enjoyment is very dependent on how much of a fan of the MCU a person is, particularly as it gets closer to the end where it just becomes another generic Marvel product. Hopefully, the future projects at Marvel will do justice to Wanda, as she is right now the most interesting character alive in the MCU. Disney has been trying to turn Spider-Man into the new Iron Man and the new face of their cinematic universe. But that is honestly a terrible idea. Spider-Man is not Iron Man, and his stories work the best when they are smaller and slightly more intimate. Instead, what they need to do is turn their focus to Wanda. There is tons of potential here. That was all from me. Thanks for watching.